Good morning. As we begin, we would like to acknowledge that this service is being held by a community that gathers on the stolen traditional lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Pawtucket, and Wampanoag people. We pay respect to those indigenous peoples who lost their lives in the colonization of this land, and recognize that these indigenous tribes are still today facing violations of sovereignty, territory, and water. We also give thanks for the earth we walk upon, the waters, the life-giving plants, and all the earth's creatures, as well as the winds, sun, moon, and stars. We recognize this is just a first step in moving toward right relationship with Native peoples and healing of the earth. Good morning again, and welcome to the First Parish Church of Stowe and Acton, a welcoming and spiritual community. My name is Meg Rivers-Wright, and I serve as your church administrator and coordinator of membership. If this is your first time with us, we welcome you. Please let us know you are here by filling out one of our visitor information cards in the pews right in front of you and hand it to an usher, drop it in the plate, or hand it to me, and I will be at the back of the room during service. Our minister and staff are listed on the front of the order of service. Please feel free to ask me or any of these people for more information about the church and its programs after the service, or by email or through the chat if you're online. Please refer to the order of service for the masking policy, or ask an usher and check with people you're talking to about their comfort levels. If you would like a large print order of service or hymnal or an assisted listening device, please ask our ushers. Our assisted listening devices work throughout the building if you'd like to listen to the service from another space for any reason. And after the service, please join us for coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall, which is one level down at the other end of the building, down that hall, down the stairs, or in a breakout room if you're joining us online. I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements in our order of service. In particular, there's an event coming up for Juneteenth celebration in Berlin, Massachusetts, run by their social justice group at the UU Church there. Looks like it's going to be a good time. I also invite you to check out our webpage for more information, and you can also sign up there for our newsletter and email alerts. And now, let us come together for a time of community, singing, and worship.
Good morning. Our opening words are by Amy Mackenzie Quinn. Welcome to this common, sacred space. Common because all are welcome. Sacred because here we transform the ordinary and attend to the profound. We carry with us our regrets, doubts, fears, stories, laughter. May they inspire our worship. And above all, may we each meet what we need most to find on this day in this common, sacred space. Brad, would you like to light a chalice one last time? Our chalice lighting words are by Charles Howe. We light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through, to illumine our ways, enlighten our ways, and illumine our minds. May we be open to this light and to the rich possibilities that it brings us. Our opening hymn is Gather the Spirit. Before I invite you to stand, I want to let you know that this is a question box sermon Sunday, which is an old tradition in Unitarian Universalist churches, where I invite you to submit questions during the service, and then I will answer as many as I can during the sermon time. I don't promise to get through them all because there are a lot of you and only so much time, and I'm long-winded. And so, but I want to invite you to write down on the index cards. You will have received like green index cards. Where's mine? I don't know. In the order of service, or pink, or all colors. Mine was just green. Okay, and bring them up during the hymn, or pass them to an usher during joys and sorrows, because I'm going to look through them and sort of prioritize them during the second hymn. So you have until then to get them to me. Okay? Please stand in body or in spirit and join in singing 347, Gather the Spirit.
Gather in peace.
Oh, yes, please remain standing in body or in spirit for the covenant and affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now I'd like to call forward one last time Marissa Evans, our Acting Director of Religious Education, who is going to thank our teachers for this year as we conclude our church year and our religious education year.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I wanted to start off by saying that I'm very grateful for the experience of being your acting director of religious education for this past year. I learned so much and have many good memories. And it was a very difficult decision to not continue on as your DRE. I'm sad about it because I enjoyed connecting with the children and youth of this community so much. This is a very wonderful job with very unique challenges, and for me, I found that it was difficult to manage my work-life balance, and I decided that that's something that I need to prioritize for my well-being. And I know that you'll be able to find an excellent next DRE because this church values religious education so highly, and that's very special. And I hope that you'll give them all the support that you can, because volunteers are so crucial in this work that we do of nurturing our kids with UU values and providing for them a place to explore and grow. And with that being said, I would like to recognize and celebrate our teachers and volunteers from this past year. We could not have done this without you. And I would love to invite up some kids. I see Quinn is here. Quinn, would you be willing to come forward? And you can hand out the gifts that we have to the teachers. Okay. And lastly, I wanted to let folks know that over here we have a coloring area with some posters. And in our last recent Club UU, we made some posters about our favorite things that we did in Club UU and also about what Unitarian Universalists believe. And these posters will be displayed at the upcoming food truck and beer festival. So kids and adults, feel free to come up, add to the existing posters, or make a new one.
And kids, if you want to do that anytime during the service today, because we're an intergenerational service, feel free anytime during the service today to come up and color on those. This is the time for our joys and sorrows together in religious community, a time to let other people know what is on our hearts and on our minds. We did not receive any by email, so we'll go straight to those here in the sanctuary and then those off-site. Oh, and folks off-site, I wanted to let you know too that I'll try and take questions from you. I won't be able to vet them the same way, so please be on good behavior, but I'll let you just speak yours out during the question box sermon time too, so think of your questions as well. And let's take this time now to share our joys and sorrows. In that case, let us come together in a time of worship and prayer with these words by Susan Suhaki Brown. Day by day, month by month, year by year, we are confronted with all we do not know, that we do not understand, that we do not grasp. Sometimes we are humbled by this knowledge and say, God, it is too wonderful for me to comprehend, but I know this universe is more grand and more beautiful than I could have ever imagined, and I give thanks for the blessings of being here and seeing, hearing, experiencing, and sensing all that is so wonderful around me and in me. Sometimes we are saddened by this knowledge and say, "Oh, merciful Spirit, we need to have the burden of hurt and suffering removed from us. Grant us the courage, the wisdom, and fortitude to bear the pain of living. Send us those who will carry our burdens for a short while, and send us those who will comfort us with their healing words and thoughts." Sometimes we are angered by this knowledge and say, "In the name of justice and compassion, if it be in our power, give us the strength and ability to right the wrongs. For if we do not, nor does any person in the world deserve this." And sometimes we are made joyous by this knowledge and we say, "Spirit of life, who blesses our world, we rejoice and cheer for our glorious life." Sometimes we are made curious by this knowledge and say, "Holy and inexplicable is this life. I have no idea what happened or how it happened, but somehow, some way, something changed, and I am free to explore new ways of being. Please always let me continue to search for the unknown in myself and in others." Blessed be, and amen. Please join now in singing our second hymn, Spirit of Life. And I forgot to put this explicitly in the order of service, but I believe we're doing a different version of it today. Brad, you want to explain this a little?
Sure. If you know the melody of Spirit of Life, that'll be the same. But Bob Glorioso brought to us the original version of Spirit of Life that was written back in the 80s. It's going to just be subtly different if you're really used to hearing it. The harmony changes a bit. So we'll sing through it twice, and we can even stay seated to sing it during this time of reflection.
Oh, y'all, this is a large stack of tough questions. I'm going to start with this one. From Quinn, age 7, what are cars made of? Now, I am not an engineer, and I am not a car specialist, but I did once work for Electronic Data Systems, EDS, on the Saturn campaign as a student. And at that time, for the first time ever, they were making cars out of plastic. Before that, cars were pretty much all metal on their outsides. And then in that time, which was, what was that, summer of 1989, or 1989, they were first starting to make cars out of plastic. Now I think cars are mostly made out of computers. Next question. How does a UU walk on water? And the answer is also given on the card, thankfully. She waits until winter. Why is there an American flag in the sanctuary? We have a rather complicated flag policy in this congregation, which allows people to request the flag to be brought into the sanctuary, and it lets the board and minister make that decision. We had a member request that the American flag be brought in for Memorial Day weekend, and nobody's taken it out. Last Sunday after the service, I realized it was still here, and I moved it during our music director interviews. It was kind of distracting me from seeing them well when they were at the organ, so I moved it over to there, trying to remember to take it out of the sanctuary for the rest of the summer, but it's still there. If anyone would like to help carry it down to its storage space in the community room after the service, that would be helpful. I usually invite my husband to do such things. He's not supposed to lift anything over 20 pounds for another couple of weeks. Why is there not always an American flag in the sanctuary? That's a complicated question too. And the answer is, I could give a whole sermon on the meaning and struggle with American flags in Unitarian Universalist churches. But let us just say that we are not all of like minds on whether or not that should be here. And so it's sort of an ongoing issue of discussion in UU congregations across the country as we wrestle with our religious freedom and the values that have been won in America for us, and yet the fact that Unitarian Universalism is not just an American religion. So, this one is not a question, so I'm just going to read it. The world has changed. More violence, more crime, more hate. If we can't change it, we must adapt to it. It is the new world. And I'm going to take this one. How are you? I'm feeling a little dizzy the last few days, which I think is a combination of pollen and air quality, which is why I'm sitting right now. I'm actually experiencing some vertigo. And so I'm just trying to take care of myself about that and hope that I remain well enough to head out to General Assembly in a week. I'm also have been really very personally sad about something that I can't say on something that's live streamed, but has to do with some children that were in my life for a long period of time that have been experiencing some sorrow and struggle with their family. And the beautiful thing is, I reached out in a colleagues group and told them what had happened, and someone sent me flowers this week. And another group of colleagues have offered to just get together with me, and I don't even know what, they're not telling me what for, but at General Assembly, I've got a date of a whole bunch of colleagues gathering around me. And so that's really, really special. Are there people who are considered UU mystics? And if so, who are they? Now, I know there's not like individual people like those are the UU mystics that you can point to, but I know a lot of UU lay people and a lot of UU ministers who would consider themselves Unitarian Universalist and mystic, that mystic is part of their spirituality. And what do I think they mean by mystic? Mystic is kind of a belief that the spirit is alive and moving in the world around you, right? That something that you are connected to a spiritual level that is very much present and with you at a lot of times. One minister I know, Alex Regal, who just left the Grosse Pointe Church and is headed to somewhere south of Michigan, he has a site called something like Remember the Mystic or something, and has really made mysticism a major part of his religious ministry, and that's fairly common among some UU ministers. I consider myself to have had mystical experiences, but at some points in my life I've used the term mystic to describe my spirituality, but not regularly and not right now. But I do think that it's something we can all claim. Do we still need kneelers? You've got some of the pews have kneelers and some of them don't. We don't really do much kneeling because it's not an accessible thing, but some of you like having those kneelers there in the pews, don't you? Yes, because you put your feet up on them. Yeah, in fact, I've taken one out of one of the pews for a while and tucked it in my office to put my feet up on underneath my desk. I think the sexton saw it and knew it was out of place and moved it back in here. Yeah, so we do, because some of us need footrests. Is love really the most important thing? For me, yes. They say, UU ministers are fond of saying that every UU minister has really only one sermon that they give over and over and over again. And mine is clearly about love. And love as it is connected to the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Love as it's connected to a deep universalism in a belief in the common destiny of all people and the inherent goodness of all people. And so I don't think that love has to be the center of things for you. It is the center of my faith for me. This one says, why Gomorrah? And I do not know if that's in a biblical context or a comic book context. And I don't know the answer either way. So that one was a stump the minister question. I'm going to answer this one. When and how did you know you were called to be a UU minister? I was raised Unitarian Universalist and had only ever seen men in the pulpit, really. Had only seen men ministers. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons it took me a while to consider that this was an option for me. My father, at one point when I was like living at home in between college and grad school, suggested to me, he's like, you know, you would be a good UU minister actually with the way you think about things. And I credit my father for making it take so long for me to become a UU minister, because you can't do what your dad suggests. So I went off to grad school in English, and I met Peter there at church. And so I was studying English as a graduate student, and I was really struggling with it. I loved English literature, but I didn't find that the way I wrote matched the way they wanted me to write. And I was struggling with the discipline and the ivory towerness of it. And I started spending more and more time at church. We started a young adult group at the church. And then I did my master's thesis on personal care narratives in the AIDS support community, which is not really technically about English literature at all. That was sort of a clue that I was trying to make literature into something else. And I applied to seminary thinking about it as a path, and I also applied to graduate schools in folklore at the same time. And I was accepted to seminary, and I was not accepted to the grad schools in folklore because I really didn't have enough background in that. And I went off thinking, I don't know if this is it for me, but it's a possibility, and I'm going to see how it works. And I got there, and it just had this sense of rightness and fit like I had never before experienced in school. And I was writing sermons, and I discovered that what I'd been writing in grad school was basically sermons. I was trying to take every literature and find a moral and a message and a hope for the future. It wasn't what they wanted in English graduate school, but it is more what you do in a sermon. And I realized that sermon writing is my natural writing style. And it was a fit in every way. So so I decided I was called to be a UU minister after starting seminary. There are a few here that are really more of suggestions. One is services and sermons usually focus on the large picture of social justice. Is it possible to lean into the more personal issues of the heart and mind? And the other one that's kind of similarly a suggestion is, how can you include more stories in sermons, shorter readings to illustrate the points? And I think both of these are really well taken, that we have a yearning for more spirituality in this congregation. And that's something that, as I'm building my calendar for next year, that I'm really paying attention to. And I'll say one of these other questions here is, how do you define spirituality, and how can one become a more spiritual person? And I think all of these are kind of related. And so I'll say that I'm planning to do a sermon series next year. I haven't done a sermon series in a long time, but one that will talk about different spiritual practices, different spiritual types. Because one of the things I believe is there's no one definition of spirituality. It's not that, like, spirituality is meditation and prayer. Spirituality can also be the path for social justice. It can also be reading and like not even a meditative, but a practice of like learning and growing and reflecting through reading. It can be various forms of physical action. It can be gardening and digging your hands into the earth. I'll talk more at that time about how I define spirituality itself as a series of right relationships, of being at one with yourself and being at one with the universe and everything in between. I'm not going to go into that right now, but look for more for that in the next year. And I think that answers those to as much as I'm going to today. How do you keep principle 1, which is the inherent worth and dignity of every person, when confronting evil? And I'll say, I think this is the biggest struggle of Unitarian Universalism in our faith. You know, other faiths have things you have to struggle with, like how to reconcile your belief in science with another religion's belief that science isn't true, right? But in our faith, the thing we struggle with most, I think, is this question of the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and yet the real evil, and I'll go ahead and call it evil, that we sometimes see in the world. And that's the struggle of universalism, too, the belief that everyone goes to heaven no matter what, that comes from our universalist heritage, and true evil. I saw a lot of people wrestling with this online this week as a certain hate-filled evangelical died, and saying, people I know, UU ministers saying, I can't wish him to rest in peace. I can't be peaceful and pray for his death. And other people saying, I'll pray for his death like he would have never prayed for my life. It's a struggle. And I will say that you don't have to always embody the purest things of our principles, that our principles are ideals that we strive towards. And we can fail again and again and again. What I try to do when confronted with the evils of this world is to, even though I'm not a theist, but I sort of imagine a God with a big sifter, and that he puts the people in it, and he sifts and sifts and sifts. This is my image of like a personified he God, which is not what I believe, but sifts and sifts and sifts, and all the evil falls out, and that which remains is good. And I try to hold that kind of image to think about that everybody, inherent worth and dignity means inherent. Doesn't mean you live it out in all ways. It means that it's in there, in every person at some point. And our goal is to find it, nurture it, grow it, so that people live into the best that they can be. Okay, how am I doing on time? I'm gonna say, I think I can get through these last 4. How to forgive when we have been mistreated. Now, there's a Christian sense of forgiveness, which is that we forgive people who have wronged us, period. And then there's a more Jewish sense of forgiveness, as I understand it, and I'm not Jewish, but where you can't forgive someone until they have basically done some restitution. And so I think forgiveness can be complicated. There are people whose, loved ones have been killed who say, I have forgiven the person who killed them. And there are other people who say, I can't forgive, and I won't forgive them. And I don't think that it is the path for everyone to find forgiveness for those who have wronged them. I don't think that it's my place to encourage you to find forgiveness if that's something you're not ready to do or interested in doing. So if you're wanting to seek forgiveness, I think it's about you, not about them. So my whole image of sifting out the bad, you could try something like that, but I think it's more important to just think about finding peace and moving on in your own heart than about trying to reconcile what they did. So moving on with a wholeness and a healingness within you. And that can be through therapy, it can be through religious pursuit, spiritual practice, it can be through just meditative practices or peace of mind practices of any sort that can help lead you in that direction. How do we reconcile a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy with a prohibition on taking life that is common in major religions? The way I reconcile that is twofold. First is on the question of what is life? And where do you define the beginning of life? Is it with breath? Is it with quickening? Is it with a certain mark along the trimester, a heartbeat, brain waves? And we're all going to have different definitions of when we say, this is life, this is human life, and we shall not take it. But the other way to reconcile it is to say that regardless of whether or not it is life, a woman or uterus holder, because not all people with uteruses are women, anyone with a uterus has the right to decide to control her own body. And that's consistent with our belief in trans rights, it's consistent with our belief in a lot of things about how we enact justice in the world, that we believe that people should be able to ultimately have sovereignty over their body. And so whether or not a fetus is a life, that doesn't trump the ability and the need for the person to control their own life. And that's a hard moral question, but it's a question that belongs to each person to decide in their own way. I'd like to hear the UU version of joyful participation in sorrows of the worlds. So if that's a phrase from another religion, I'm not as familiar with it because I was raised UU. Is that something, joyful participation in sorrows of the world? Is that something you've heard from other faiths? The UU version, I would think, is what we do in joys and sorrows. That we are coming together and being with one another in times of sorrow and in times of joy. And those are personal and local, and sometimes they're also the whole world. And so we're modeling on a microcosm here our care, and how care for one another is how we build beloved community. And lastly, talk about leading with love as Unitarian Universalists. I wore my pride stool today, my rainbow stool, because a large part of what I believe is important about Unitarian Universalism is social justice. My spirituality is very much grounded in a justice as well. Sometimes the times when I feel most spiritual is when I'm together in a throng of people and we are working together for some common good. In my last congregation, we did summer services together with all 3 of the welcoming churches in the entire county of Jackson, Michigan. There were 3 churches that were welcoming in the entire county, and we did a joint service, and we called it Love is Love is Love, after a statement that I think it was Lin-Manuel Miranda made after the Pulse Club shootings. We came together to celebrate love is love, and to be a pride-filled, joyful service that led with love in the community. And I'm going to talk about this at the Sudbury Pride this afternoon, because one of the things that happened when we held that worship service was a city council member came. One who had been thinking, oh, we can't pass a non-discrimination ordinance in Jackson because it won't get through the city council. And he's been on our side, but not willing to put it on the table. And he came to that worship service and he heard the stories of discrimination that people shared, and the stories of love that people shared, the stories of how people had experienced hate in this city and fear in this city, and the pride in us coming together and working for the future. And he came to that service and he said, okay, I need to take a stand. We need to change things in Jackson. And he was willing then to bring the non-discrimination ordinance to the city council level. And that's what one of the real tangible examples to me of leading with love, how the work we did as religious communities proclaiming our love changed an entire city to be a safer place for LGBTQ people. And as long as we keep doing that, as long as we keep proclaiming our message of love, I believe that we are building the beloved community for the future, and that we are making this world a better place, and that we are bending that arc. I mean, Theodore Parker said, and Martin Luther King quoted after him, that the arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And we are putting our hands on that arc and bending it towards justice with every hymn we sing, with every story we tell, with every moment in joys and sorrows, and with every benediction as we go and take our faith out into the world. May it be so. What's next in our order of service? Offertory. Yes. So our plate is shared this month with the Assabet River organization, and more about them can be found in your orders of service. We're grateful for the work of this community in helping keep the organizations we support afloat, literally in their case, and the church as well. Thank you for your contributions.
My mother, when love is gone, my mother, when love is gone, in our darkest hour hope lingers on.
My father, when peace is gone, my father, when peace is gone,
in our darkest hour hope lingers on. I will not faint, and I will not fear, in our darkest hour.
equality's gone. When equality's gone, in our darkest hour, hope lingers on. My brother, when tolerance gone, when tolerance gone, in our darkest hour, hope lingers on. I will not change, and I will not fear, in our darkest hour, hope lingers near. My love, when honor is gone, my love, when honor is gone, in our darkest hour, hope lingers on. My country, when justice is gone, when justice is gone, in our darkest hour, hope lingers on. I will not faint, and I will not fear, in our darkest hour, hope lingers near. I will not hate, and I will not fear, in our darkest hour, hope lingers near.
Hey, I'm sorry I forgot to take questions from off-site, so I'll tell you what. Type them in the chat to Hector. I'll get them from him after the service, and I'll write a blog post or newsletter column or FPC announce answering some more questions. At this time, we're having a joyful Sunday, but we're going to end on a note that is bittersweet as we say goodbye to two among us, Brad Dumont, Marissa Evans, who have been on our staff each for 2 years, Marissa in 2 different roles during those 2 years, and who are both leaving their professional roles, although hopefully both not leaving this community forever. Brad agrees that he'll come back and be guest conductor from time to time. And Marissa obviously has family in this congregation, and I'm sure we'll be seeing her around from time to time as well. But this is the end of their formal tenure with us, and so we want to give them our thanks and appreciation. And so I just wanted to begin by saying first to you, Brad, that it has been a real joy to work with you for these last 2 years. You came in at a time when we were coming out of being completely online, and we changed worship formats like 7 times that year. The choir was singing sometimes from online, from the fellowship hall, and then sometimes in person during the service from fellowship hall, and then finally back into the sanctuary. And you led us through that time with grace and wisdom, and so thank you for that. And you've brought into our service a love of justice and a diversity of music, some hard music, some easy music, a diversity of styles and content, and the wonderful other communities that you work with that you've brought in and graced our worship with as well. And so thank you for all of that. Marissa, you too have brought a sense of justice and compassion to your work here at FPC, and it's been a joy to work with you for the last 2 years. First as youth coordinator, and I had a youth in the youth group, and so got to hear firsthand how exciting and dynamic and interesting you made that experience. And then this year as religious educator, and you brought a compassion and wisdom that were far beyond your number of years as a religious educator you brought to this faith and to this church. And you guided us through this interim time with asking questions of the the RE community, and to help us consider what the future can look like at FPC. And I thank you for your guidance and for your wisdom and for your compassion. I want to invite both of you to come forward, and Sharon Brownfield is going to hop off of the Zoom there and join us up front, and then also invite Russ from the Religious Education Committee, and I believe Sharon from Arts. There you are. Come on forward, all five of you. Sharon, I think I'll hand it to you first today.
And I'd like to ask the whole Arts Committee to come forward too, please.
Well, first, Brad, I, representing the congregation, want to thank you for your 2 years here at FPC. It's been an education and a joy to see the changes in music and certainly the expansion of art. And as a tradition, which has now become from FPC, we want you to remember us. So we have for you a gift. It's, go ahead and open it. That is a reusable bag, and it's also a symbol of our auction. So you now have a UU mug. And because of all the really expansive artwork that you introduced to us and with the art committee, the congregation would like to give you another gift. Yes, you should.
While I'm opening this, I'll just say it's hard to open this and hold this at the same time. While I'm opening this, I'll just say it's amazing to see this whole spread of people kind of standing here. When I came into the congregation, it was loosely mentioned that the idea of an arts coalition should be something that gets going. And it was just before the pandemic that was starting, but it didn't really get to take off. And so there was all these seeds in place. And I got to kind of water the seeds, and this team came together. So I thank you all for jumping into this and starting this great coalition that we have. This is beautiful. Wow. This is D. Wow. Thank you.
This is Dee's painting.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, and as one of the people of the Arts Committee was coalition, now we're an official committee, yay. As Brad said, soon after Brad arrived, we had a chat with him and said, don't you want to be involved in the other arts as well? And he has been indispensable with our forming of this committee and launching this committee and moving ahead with this committee. Not only is he so knowledgeable in music, but he's knowledgeable in so many of the arts and has brought such expertise in all kinds of areas, prison work, school work, all the groups he's participated in. He's just incredibly talented and knowledgeable. And we as a group thank him so much for all that he has given to us. You've been the wind beneath our wings, and we're where we are because of you. So I don't know if anybody, shall we leave it at that? Okay. But thank you so much. And here's a little symbolic gift from us, which you can go ahead and open. There's a card in there which you can open later. But it says, we persevere, and then it says support the, save the arts, and it has the symbols of all the different arts on it. So thank you so much, Brad. We will miss you terribly.
So Marissa, it's been a delight seeing you, because when Rick and I came here to the church, we were in one of your groups. As we all were learning about ourselves and about racism and that type of thing, and then to have you come back and serve as our youth coordinator and then as our acting interim DRE. It's been a delight and to see your growth and to see you be part of us and share your knowledge and your experience, because you left FPC and did so many things. And it was just amazing, some of the experiences that I heard from Mary and the other events that you've done, and bring that knowledge here to FPC. So we want to wish you the very best as you go forward in what you decide to do. And again, a little gift for you from the congregation.
Thank you, thank you.
So Marissa, as I stand here, I can't help but reflect that 20 years ago, you were a student of mine in RE classes that I was teaching. And here we are, going through another transition. So on behalf of the RE committee, I have a bag of goodies here as a token of our appreciation and appreciation for your leadership this past year. And I want to say thank you for your tolerance of my lack of technological expertise. She helped me understand how to access Google Docs, which is totally new to me. But we totally appreciate your leadership this year, and you've gotten us through a difficult time, and we will dearly miss you and wish you all the best in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you. Sure. And it's like silver unicorn gift card, tea collection,
And a candle.
and a candle. So thank you so much. I'll miss you all too.
Thank you both, Brad and Marissa, for your time here with us at FBC. I let Brad pick pretty much all the hymns today, and so our closing one is one of his favorites. All of them today are his favorite. He has lots of favorites. Guide My Feet. Please stand in body or spirit and join in him singing hymn number 348.
It's a call and response, so I'll start the first line of every verse, and then you can sing through the rest. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Search my heart
closing words are by Michael Schuler. We have reached the end of this time for the gathering of memory and for letting the imagination play with future possibilities. We've enjoyed magic moments and edified each other. Shall it be concluded then? Or will this adventure, now commenced, continue? Our separate paths converging, meeting, merging, in the unending quest for love more perfect, the joyous struggle for meaning more sufficient, and life more abundant. Or is this ending to be an ending? Or merely a prelude to new, more glorious beginnings? I pose the question, in your hearts lies the answer. We're going to conclude with the closing song that Brad brought to us, Keep On Moving Forward.
Gotta keep on moving forward. Gotta keep on moving forward. Gotta keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gotta learn to love our neighbor. Gotta learn to love our neighbor. Gotta learn to love our neighbor. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gotta reach across our borders. Gotta reach across our borders. Gotta reach across our borders. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gotta keep on moving forward. Gotta keep on moving forward. Gotta keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back.
Two things before our postlude. There are goodbye cards here and thank you cards here for Brad and Marissa. Please sign them on your way out. And then join us downstairs for a brief reception and then out on the lawn for church picnic. That was actually three things, but let's take it away.
Every voice and let us sing. In every song, let freedom ring. From every soul comes a noble breeze. Let justice roll like a mighty stream. Like a mighty stream. Like a mighty stream. Let justice roll. Let justice roll. Let justice roll like a mighty stream. Every trial will overcome, and every child beneath the sun, and every soul shall live as one. The noble dream has just begun. Like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream, let justice roll. Let justice roll